G'day and welcome back to Module 5 of our Data Studio course, and in this short module we'll talk about getting data into Data Studio. So now that we've had a look around and we understand what we're playing with, now we need to go connect some data before we can start creating our charts and creating our dashboard. So there's a bunch of different choices that you have. I'm going to assume for the most part that these three will be pretty much all you need. We've been playing with some stuff where we can pull data in from a SQL database and Google BigQuery. We're starting to do more and more stuff with Google BigQuery, so it's kind of cool that it can connect directly to that. But for the most part, if you want to connect in Fusion or any kind of CRM, if you want to connect Facebook data, all of that stuff, you're going to have to push it into Google Sheets first and then connect and then pull the data from Google Sheets in order to chart it inside of Data Studio. AdWords and Analytics, very easy out of the box. Everything else pretty much is going to go via Google Sheets. Once you connect, and it's very easy, you'll see it, you just sort of connect, it'll give you a list of potential data types. I'm going to assume for this part that pretty much AdWords and Analytics is going to be what you use most of the time. So here's an AdWords one. You connect an AdWords account. You can then have a look at all of the different fields, and you can see here the list of fields, and there's typically about 110 or so fields that it'll pull in from AdWords, and it will automatically assign a type to that field. And you can see at the top here there's rows 1 and 2, a couple of calculated metrics that I've created here. I'll talk about those later on. The one I want to call out, if you're doing this with AdWords, is impression share. Impression share, it brings in by default as a number all of the different impression share metrics, and just to tidy up your dashboards you may want to just take that extra step and go in and change impression share into a percent. I've no idea why it doesn't pull that one in the right way, but it doesn't. If you need more training around this, then Data Studio's got some good training, and there's the short code for just the basics of connecting analytics, Google Sheets, or if you need one of the other sources. But it really is very easy. It's just point and shoot inside of Data Studio. One thing to be aware of is the access levels. Now, the default here is owner's credentials, and there's really very, very limited use cases where you might need to change that, but just so that you understand what it is, if you use owner's credentials, then whoever's basically created the dashboard, if they have access to that AdWords account, everybody gets to see the AdWords data on that dashboard. Viewer's credentials, then it's going to depend on the person viewing the dashboard. If they don't have access to the AdWords account and the AdWords data, then they wouldn't be able to see the dashboard if you set it to viewer's credentials. Can't think of too many use cases where you're doing that. Obviously, if the AdWords data is really, really private and you want to share the dashboard widely, and maybe some of the information on that dashboard you want some people to see and others you don't want people to see, that's about the only one I can think of. But then I would probably be creating two different dashboards at that point. So owner's credentials, default, is probably good enough. The one little gotcha that we've found while we've been playing with Data Studio is that you may want to share the data source itself. Now, I'll talk about this in a later module when we talk about, I've got a slide in a later module that will explain this better, but when you're trying to look at the data source, sometimes you can edit the data source and sometimes you can't. It took us ages to figure out how, and Fatima figured this out. If you, on the home screen of Data Studio, if you first click on data sources over there on the left, and then next to the data source itself, you then choose to go in and share that data source. Everybody on your domain can edit, for instance, or everybody that has access to this can edit. Then everybody can edit, which means everybody can go and change that impression share thing to percent, or everybody can go and create a calculated metrics. Otherwise, only the person that sets the whole thing up can. So that's quite a useful thing. You can't see it there because it's covered it up, but the first thing is to click the little 3-dot icon. I've no idea what that's called, a little traffic light symbol next to the data source, and then when you click that, this little menu will pop up and you hit share. That's everything for growing and grabbing data.